और पीछे अच्छे से मिलेगा।
राहुल भाई कौन वहाँ से आना बाइक को वहाँ से आना
ये साइड आ जाओ भाई, उधर ट्रैफिक है
भाई। वहाँ से टर्न मार के आओ ना, वहाँ से टर्न मार के आते
सब आ जाए साथ में।
या बाबा सोबत फोटो
आणि राईटला बघा, स्टार्ट फॉर राईट.
स्माइल
राईटला बघा, राईटला. आता
थांबा फिर आपको
राहुल भाई इधर जी. हाँ
एकदम सामने बोथ ऑफ यू सेंटर.
पला ले लो
मैडम यहाँ पे सर यहाँ.
भाई भाभी कांग्रेचुलेसन.
हाँ मारो
भाई इधर.
10 महीने हो गए ना.
राहुल
स्टोरी डाली थी ना.
दिशा जी इधर.
हम याद रखते सबको.
हाँ भाई आपको.
राहुल भाई
भाई सेंटर.
एक मिनट भाई सोलो.
अरे
क्या
इवेंट पे आए हो?
कपल साथ में तो सोलो बोल रहा था.
इवेंट पे आए हैं क्या?
इतना अच्छा फोटो को खराब करवा रहे हैं.
नया आया भाई, छोड़ दो.
तभी मिनट बढ़ेगा ना सोलो में. मिनट तभी बढ़ती है ना सोलो.
अरे किशन कुछ क्वेश्चन ही नहीं किया, क्यों आए हो तुम? हाँ पूछो ना.
बाइट करना गाना बोला ना राहुल भाई. इसको कुछ बाइट करे नहीं कुछ.
थैंक यू. सर वेट
एक सेकंड
वीडियो के लिए. सर दिस कैमरा.
थैंक यू सर. थैंक यू.
Stomach in chest, sir.
प्रसाद.
I'm wearing the right color though.
Yes. No. One more. One more. Hold. Can you? Yes, ma'am. Without boost one.
Sorry?
Without
the book? You didn't get that.
Yes, ma'am.
You have to say something. I really hate having my photo taken like with a passion. I hate it. So you need to talk to me.
Yeah, but then you need to smile for this picture. For the videos, I can talk to you.
Ma'am, here.
One second.
I'm getting golden booking.
Quickly, can't hold my breath so much. Out comes the watch.
Yes, sir. Ma'am, here.
Ma'am here.
Guys, here. Right.
हो गया? क्या I'm done. Okay.
Done. Thank you. Sorry.
Really good.
to do anything. You see, I feel glad when you're glad. I feel sad when you're sad. If you only knew what I am going through. You came along just like a song and brightened my day. Would have believed that you were part of a dream. Now it all seems light years away. And now you know I can't smile.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Choreographers, writers, all kinds of inclusive people from the theatre. So we're really happy to have you here and welcome to the launch of Let Me Hijack. Awesome. Seen him on stage and he was part of Death of a Salesman with Dad. He's an Indian film and stage actor. He's the recipient of a Screen Award, International India Film Academy Award, and 2 Filmfare nominations. His performance in the film Neerja, which most of you must have seen, won him attention and accolades and also won him the Zee Cine Best Male Debut of 2016. He's also been part of Sanjay Leela Bhansali's Gangubai Kathiawadi, starring Alia Bhatt and Rocket Boys 2022. Welcome, Jim. Welcome. Even though you thought I invited you as a guest, but welcome. We have Dalit Tahir. Woo! Dalit is an actor, a singer, a dancer, and worked with Dad in A Streetcar Named Desire, Evita, Marat Saad, and Man of La Mancha. Dalit made his film career debut acting in Shyam Benegal's Ankur. All of you all have seen that. And he got his first major role in Ramesh Sippy's film Shan. He has appeared in over 100 Bollywood films. And his most recent movie being Tulsi Das Jr. and 2 television shows, The Inside Edge and The Family Man. Let's hear it for Dalit. Thank you so much for being here. And now, ladies and gentlemen, woo, we have the one and only Shiamak Davar, also known as a daddy's other son. May I say that with pride? Yes?
That is true.
Shiamak Davar started his career with Alyque in the theatre and Evita, and then went on to playing many roles in his musicals, Cabaret, Tarantula Tansy, and more. He also choreographed the Asian choreographer teacher, celebrity judge, and philanthropist. In short, he's kind of an entertainment icon. Thank you.
His book, Let Me Hijack Your Mind. Well, it's not really his book, in that Vandana Saxena Poria took the trouble of conducting a number of extended conversations with him, distilling the wisdom, rendering them into fluent and readable prose, and making a book out of it. But the book, in so many ways, embodies some of the finest qualities of the provocative intellect that Alyque Padamsee was. We've all known him in his various avatars as a creative genius, as an ad man extraordinaire, and in my own case, as a theatre director, because as a young man I was a student of his then wife Pearl Padamsee at Campion School, Bombay. So my first exposure to Alyque was when he came over to help her in directing Oliver, the musical play in which I played the artful dodger. And some of my more memorable experiences were hearing Alyque barking out to some hapless 12-year-old in the cast, "Stop running around like a chicken with your head cut off," and other such imprecations. Alyque was wonderful. We got to see a lot of each other over the years as I was often invited to their marvelous home on Woodhouse Road in Colaba, where plays would take place on the terrace and sketches. Pearl and Alyque were just bubbling with not just creative energy, but an enthusiasm for life, which infected many of us. Seeing the spark of Alyque Padamsee coming out again in this book is a particular joy. I wish you all a great deal of happiness in remembering Alyque on this special occasion, and I hope
So, ladies and gentlemen, this evening, in keeping with my father's legacy,
Thank you to Rael and the ACE team, and to Shazan and to Sharon, who really helped me complete this book. So big thank you to them. All right, so we're going to have a bit of discussion about the book. Let me hijack your mind. When we were discussing the title, so many people said, don't use the word hijack. Don't use the word hijack because it's very negative. But Alyque purposely wanted to use the word hijack because he believes we've outsourced our thinking. He thinks we outsourced our thinking, first of all, years ago to religion, which told us what to do, how to behave. It was then outsourced to the monarchies that existed across the world. It's now currently been outsourced to the media and to celebrities, obviously present company accepted. And they tell us what to think. And he says, no, I want it to be hijacked because we have to take their minds back from giving it away to other people and back into people's heads. So the whole purpose of this book was to get people to start critically thinking about why they follow social norms that have been around for years. So I have this fantastic panel with me, and I'm going to be asking you some questions, some perhaps difficult questions at times. So Jim, I want to start with you. One of the chapters in this book, in fact, chapter 1, is I would never sleep with a stranger unless it was my husband. That gets silence, doesn't it? Right? It gets silence because the story goes that Alyque was invited to Calcutta to speak at a women's lunch, and he said that they all came in dripping with jewelry and wearing beautiful saris, and his first sentence to them was, would you allow your kids to sleep with strangers? And they all kind of arched their backs and they said, Mr. Padamsee, how can you even suggest such a thing? That's what those American divorcees do. And he said, okay. And then he said, and how many of you believe in arranged marriages? And then the penny dropped. He says, you don't want them to sleep with strangers, but you're telling them to sleep with whoever you say, even if they don't know them. So this was the start of a chapter on hypocrisies. So Jim, the book has got several hypocrisies in that chapter. Are there any that stand out to you, or is there anything else? What's the biggest hypocrisy that you think we need to get rid of in India?
Well, is it on? Can you hear me? Well, I do have to say right off the bat that I believe that actually being hypocritical is everyone is hypocritical. Every single person in this place is hypocritical. If you aren't hypocritical, you're akin to a saint, in my opinion. I believe we all live under the principle of do as I say, not as I do. And I think that the hypocrisy is just deeply embedded inside of us. There's so many of them. The same advice we'll give someone else, we won't take. The same way we want our family to be treated, we won't treat other families. The same way we want to treat the people we love, we won't treat people we don't care about or don't fit within our idea of worth or our socio-economic strata or whatever it is. And I think we all are dripping with hypocrisies. But if we're talking about specifically in India, larger hypocrisies, then there are so many. And I think one of the main ones is the difference between how we treat people in different socio-economic classes.
Okay, so if you were to expand that a bit more, what do you mean by the way we treat people in different socio-economic classes?
Well, we all would openly say that we believe in respect and respecting each other and you know, being kind to our neighbor, etc., etc. But I mean, that respect only often only extends to people within this who think the same way as you or are within the same socioeconomic strata as you. And you often talk to people that work for you or people you think are beneath you in this social hierarchy that we very much continue to prop up and support very differently.
Very, very good point. And that was one thing that really upset Alyque, which is why he did so much social work. And he did all these brilliant adverts. Do you remember the advert of the tomatoes in the jar? Do some of you remember that? So the government came to Alyque and said, Mr. Padamsee, we need to reduce the population in India. And he said there's two ways to do it. And originally, we won't talk about Kama Sutra condoms yet. We'll talk about them after. But he did an advert where he got a jar and they had 2 tomatoes in the jar. And basically, if you put the third one in and turned the lid, all of the tomatoes burst. And he showed this advert to the government, and the government said, Mr. Padamsee, you haven't said anything about population control. And he said, really? Is that what you think? So they took the advert to all these villages across India, and they said, what do you think this represents? And astoundingly, across the country, everyone said, this is obvious. This is like, ek ya do bus means we should only have 2 kids. Because if we have a third, we won't have enough money. So it's pretty amazing. He was always thinking about the underdog, and he was always looking at how he could bring them up. So thanks for that, Jim. Dalit, have you got any hypocrisies that you think exist in the world today that we should eliminate? What would make India a better place?
How much time do you have? I think Jim pretty much summed it up. First of all, I'd like to wish you all a very good evening, and thank you all for having me here, and Ryle and everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. I worked a lot with Alyque, and I absolutely consider him my guru in the theatre, and he helped influence me in a lot of things that have helped me in my future career. Having said that, I don't know, life itself seems to be such a big hypocrisy. I mean, there's always a duality, there's always double speak. There doesn't seem to be any kind of sort of truth that you can completely rely on any longer in any aspect. It's becoming increasingly difficult. And we all have our personal hypocrisies. They are probably controlled by a lot of social factors. And like I said, I mean, it's extremely difficult to pinpoint one because there are so many. And let me just say that, unfortunately, our lives have just become a constant hypocrisy.
Our lives have become a constant hypocrisy. Fair enough, and that's probably one of the reasons why Alyque, at the end of the book, has said, look, Moses may have written the 10 Commandments back then, but it's time to revise those commandments, and each of us should think about bringing out our own commandments that we stick by to try and get rid of these hypocrisies. So we're going to be interested at the end to find out what your favorite commandment is. But in the meantime, I'm just curious to know from the audience, what hypocrisies do you think we need to get rid of in India? Is anyone going to be brave enough? Okay, we have Harsha.
Anyone?
Yep. Can we get the mic on? Yeah.
Hello.
No. Yeah, there we go.
So basically, when we see people in different accents, you know, we see people with different accents.
With different accents, yeah.
Yeah, we try and laugh on them.
Yeah.
So for example, say you go to Germany, you go to, you know, France, and you don't know a word or a language. Now, if they laugh at you, how do you feel? So that we never consider for, you know, people coming from different regions. So that is
That's
something.
a really good one. Yeah. And in fact, we bring up in the book, we talk about an example where there's people from the Northeast who are living in cities and they're called Chinese. So completely, that's a great one. Thanks very much. One more? Oh, someone right at the back. Can we get a mic back there?
So no business person will criticize the government because of the actions. And we have no freedom of speech as to say. Thank you.
Thank you. And you would very much like one of the chapters in the book because it's called the Taxpayers Union. And it's to try and get people together to say, basically, if we don't get the services, we should be able to do something about it. So thank you for that one.
Yeah, even in the first chapter, he talks about how basically our population is almost 50% of our population is below the age of 25. And yet the average age of anybody running the government is 54. Yeah. So he just talks about, and there are about 1,000 of them. So there are about 1,000 people in the age bracket of 50 and above running the government, running the country, which actually has a humongous
676 million.
Youth population. And there's a hypocrisy right there. Yeah, right. And going back to the original one as well about would you marry, you know, would you have sex with a stranger? Would you sleep with a stranger? I think the sexual neuroses in this country are off the charts because it's been kept a taboo for so long and it's continued to be something that you don't talk about. I mean, in one way, it is supposed to increase the excitement of it, but all it really does, in my opinion, is like create neuroses, which is why sexual violence is so humongous in this country, because we don't have no sex education from a young, early age.
Thank you for bringing up that point. I think one of the things we talk about later in the book is speaking the unspoken dialogues. So you just did that. You spoke about something that we don't talk about. So thank you for bringing that up. That's brilliant. Okay, well, we've heard from three stalwarts on the stage. What we'd like to do now is go and hear from somebody else. So we have Ronnie Screwwala, who's going to be telling us. Yeah, he's on the screen.
What is the most important thing that you think Youngistan needs today, and how do they develop it?
What influenced me and took me away from Alec's point of view is just that level of discipline. I think there's the army for discipline, and then there's the theater for discipline. I think my discipline on thinking, on pre-planning, and just when you think you got it right, you go back again and start all over again. So I think one of the strong messages for Youngistan and all of us actually is some of those learnings there. One being really just about that think again context, that one more time has a resonance that actually is very relevant in everything that I've learned and practiced in the last 50 years in my working profession.
Great. So Ronnie talked about discipline, and obviously he was talking about discipline in the theatre and discipline in the business world. Do we have discipline in our personal lives, though? And the next question is going to be all about that. Go on, Jim. Go.
I also think it's very easy to talk about discipline when you are in a certain position in life. A lot of people don't get training, are only thinking about other things. I mean, I think even the idea of discipline or of accessing your hypocrisy is a humongous privilege.
That is very, very true. But getting trained, and Dalit, you started with Alyque when you were 14. Is that correct? You started working with...
Yeah, I've been known to be reckless in my life. Yeah, I did, as a matter of fact.
And so that discipline, did you see discipline coming in there?
Absolutely. I mean, the theatre, I quite agree with anyone who says that there is a lot of discipline required in the theatre. I don't think you can really survive in the theatre or actually in the performing arts or in many other fields if you don't have an inherent discipline. And working with Alyque, that was one of the most important things that I imbibed in the theatre, which has helped me in good stead all my life because I'm a professional actor, is the sense of discipline in the simplest of things, that you just, be on time. Most important thing, and one of the very, very important things in our lives all over the world, particularly in India, is be on time, which sends a signal of discipline and respect for the other person's time. And it is in the community that respect grows. And with that comes, I think, a sort of a work and an emotional ethos that is really so important for progress. So yeah, I mean, the theatre teaches you a lot of disciplines. It also teaches you it teaches you how to work on your character. It teaches you the discipline of how you approach a job and the perhaps systematic or not so systematic approach. So it is discipline all over the place.
Okay, so now I'm going to really do an Alyque Padamsee on you. What about discipline in marriage?
I mean, that's a contradiction in terms. Discipline in marriage. Oh, God.
Before you
you're
answer
really,
that,
really making me do the heavy lifting today. Huh?
That's the purpose. Okay, let me set the context so that the audience has it, and then you can answer. So we have a chapter in the book which is, do you need a license to marry your partner? How many of you think it would be better, instead of having till death do us part, we have a 5-year marriage license? Just put your hand up if you agree. A renewable 5-year marriage license. And that is the question. Okay, so a few of you. Now let's explain the logic. And then Dalit will come to you. So Alyque says in the book, he says he's looked around the world and he's looked at this concept of marriage. Now remember, when marriage as an idea came about, it was 2,000, 3,000, 5,000 years ago, when we probably only lived to be 30. So when you said till death do us part, you were probably only alive for 15 years after that. Now, you're getting married and it's supposed to be until death do us part. It could be for 65, 75, 85 years. Now, think about this. At school, before you get to the next grade, you have to take an exam. At work, if you want to be promoted, you have an appraisal. You can see where this is going. What about marriage? Nothing to say that you've got to perform. Now, Alyque says the answer to this is, let us have a 5-year renewable marriage license. Now, the whole idea of it is, in year 4, the idea is not to end the marriage. The idea is in year 4, you suddenly start thinking, this has actually been really good, but am I doing enough for my partner? Am I spending time with them? Am I doing what they need? And your partner's going to think the same. It can only be renewed if both parties agree. So, Dalit, what do you think of this idea of Alyque's?
Well, thanks for...
Can we have the mic on? I think it's...
Well, thanks for coming back to me. That famous line, I mean, the marriage till death do us part, I think, is solely responsible for people fleeing from the altar of marriage and from the mandap and, having 10 thoughts before getting married. About this 5-year license thing, I mean, it's a great thought in terms of the fact that, you know, you have a trial marriage, basically. It also reminds me of having like a temporary driver's license, where if you do not perform, do you then get negative points, and then does that not qualify you to get the license that actually says till death do us part? So there's that aspect to it. And are there, if you're having a trial between partners, whoever they may be, man and man, woman and man, so let's deal here with the conventional woman and man. You're actually giving them a trial period. I would assume that they get along and then they decide that they want to go ahead with the marriage. Now, is there a caveat there saying that in that period, for example, you say, you know, just so that we can establish your relationship, you don't have any children? Because I can't help but believe that if you have a 5-year trial period, and let's say you both want to sort of go your own way after that, and there's a kid or there's a child, it's bound to complicate the whole situation. I mean, it just does. So, I mean, as much as it's a very interesting thought, but I know Alyque, and he would have always wanted his thoughts and his ideas to be able to be incorporated and inculcated into society, so that they, you know, are then effective for society. So, I don't know. I'm not too happy on any licenses for marriage. In fact, I mean, I think the whole concept really came as it came in India. I believe, in my loose understanding of history, from the Victorian age, because before the Victorians came into India, the system of marriage in India was really quite flexible. I mean, in terms of, you know, it wasn't uncommon for Hindu and Muslim men to have more than one wife for different sociological reasons. And even in the West, when the Victorians finally got rid of the corset of marriage emotionally and physically, you know, and the women were under so much suppression at that time, quite literally, because of their tight corsets, then came the First World War. And that completely changed the very premise of what a man and a woman's relationship conventionally would possibly be.
Because before that, the woman was always reliant.
Because, quite frankly, millions of young men died in the trenches of Europe. So women came to work in Europe and in the UK and everywhere where the war was. So the whole concept that women can't work with machines, as I said in Titanic, went out of the window, and suddenly women became a major working force. And when the time came for them to marry, I think there were no men. They weren't. They were all dead, poor fellow. They were in trenches. I mean, they're not useful to a marriage if you're in a grave. So, I'm sorry, I don't mean to be happy, but you know what I mean. Yeah, it depends which marriage. So, I mean, that whole thing changed, and the whole premise changed, and then 2 decades later, there's another world war. And that just took the whole thing even further. Then we come into the age of after the wars. You have the rock and roll era, free love, free society. Nobody wanted any kind of restrictions or being told what to do. So we went through that cycle. And somewhere down it's percolated into India, and it's just so difficult to pinpoint marriage. I mean, I just think it's a complete mess. I mean, you know, it's really difficult to
so we need to rethink the whole concept.
Deal with it in so many ways. And in fact, I think if a man and a woman really want to spend their time together, all you need is that line saying, till death do you part, and you go, hey, wait a minute. I don't know. I mean, is this like, how long is this going to last, you know? And I really, you know, I don't have the answers, to be very honest. I can just sort of speculate and take you through this.
I love meeting people who have bigger commitment issues than me.
Shiamak, I want to hear from you. What do you think about this idea of a 5-year marriage license?
I think the woman should be given the right to say yes or no for a change.
The woman should be given the right.
What do you say?
Women, we love Shiamak.
I think that's really important, because in a male-dominated society, I think women should be given, please, some power.
Why do you think women should be given?
Because
Tell me about women.
I know it sounds corny. My grandmother, fearless Nadia Hunterwali, my spiritual guru who wrote the book, The Laws of the Spirit World, I think these were very strong women. My mother used to work you know, like a man. She used to do everything like a man. She would go. She would be exactly the same energy as a male. So the thing is that I do believe that women are very strong. I think that somewhere they are even stronger than men. I also believe that they're the only portal that can bring a soul from the spirit world to earth. So that's a powerful portal that she has. And she can, you know, she's the only one who can do that. So what I'm trying to say is this feminine energy which is not being given priority because of this, you know, male thingy, I think that's why I said women should be given the priority here.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Whose side are you on?
It's pretty clear.
I've always said, I mean, you know, it's the women who control this world. It's a completely matriarchal world. When you're not looking or knowing, that's what's happening. So, I mean, you know, there's no denying it.
Yeah. Brilliant, brilliant. Thank you. Well, talking of strong women, we have a strong woman coming up, and she's going to talk about her experiences of doing broken images. And that's Shabana Azmi.
Shabana, tell us, in what way did Alyque
Takes me on to another chapter in the book, which is called My 1000 Best Friends. I'm just going to read you a couple of lines at the beginning. A journalist wrote to me a year ago asking me how many people I knew well. This is obviously Alyque. Not just acquaintances, but where I knew what made them tick inside. I called him back and said, probably about, I paused for dramatic effect, and then said quite loudly, yeah, probably about 1,000. He was quite incredulous. 1,000 people? Really? Mr. Padamsee, I know you've lived a long life, but surely you don't know 1,000 people that well. Who are they? So I said, you think so? Okay, I'll give you their names. I would start with Hamlet, Othello, Juliet, Romeo, Evita, Portia, Puck, Malvolio. He burst out laughing in total disbelief. The fact is, I do intimately know 1,000 people. Do you know I did 77 plays, so in effect I have 77 different families, comprising the characters, the cast, and all the supporting staff. So that gives you an idea, but Shiamak, I want to go to you and ask you, do you think it is important to have something serious in your life apart from work that you take very seriously? Do you think that's important?
I think there's always something else than just what you do. I think, you know, but that's me, because I believe a lot in the divine. I believe a lot in the essence of love, kindness, and goodness, and as he said correctly, Jim, about hypocrisy, because all of us are such hypocrites. It's a pathetic thing, but I believe a lot in that kind of understanding of spiritual knowledge. And I do believe that if you balance divinity with your work or whatever you're doing, there's always that balance, true balance, which really is important, because you can't get it from a physical job or something that you do only physically. There has to be a mental, emotional, something that stabilizes you and grounds you. So for me, that is vital in just then, you know, you go home, you work, and you do this, you do that. There has to be something else. And for me, that something else is
your relationship with the universe and
with everything.
Energy.
Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. And that helps ground you, and that helps you do your work better.
Absolutely. And also, don't forget, if you are really connected in some way to the divine, then even as an actor or a dancer or a choreographer or an artist, you know, it will flow through you naturally. It won't just be a wooden performance. There will be something real. And acting is about truth. So you will find something suddenly awaken in you that makes you think another way. You know, it's like a conduit. You're like a conduit. So it comes. That's how I've been choreographing and singing. And of course, when I forget the words, I have Sharon Prabhakar on stage with me, helping me, because I can't remember lyrics and lines. Sorry. I don't know how you do it, Jim. You're a fabulous actor. Nijat, you are mind-blowing. But my Carla also used to go crazy with me on, I just don't remember things. So I have
Yeah.
that problem, but
No, brilliant. And I know what you mean because, Riley, you know about this. After Alyque passed, for about 6 months, I could not even look at the manuscript. And he'd been there as kind of like a fairy godfather for 3 years, and now he wasn't there. And then 6 months later, you asked me to pick up and start again, or to start working on it. And I remember sitting at my desk in tears, thinking, how can I do this without Alyque? And then I was like, Alyque, if you are around, I really need you now. And literally, I just felt myself typing. And so many people have said to me, including a couple of you, that this sounds like Alyque's voice 100%. And that's because he was with me 100%. So I completely get that.
Absolutely. Vandana, would you share with us a little bit of how much time you spent on the book? You know, how many hours or days or months you spent with Alyque?
So I have to tell you, first of all, we had no idea what this book was going to be about. Alyque said, I know I have a book in me. It is not a biography. It's something else, but I don't know what it's going to be about. And so I said, how about I just come round and record the conversations that we have, and we'll see what comes out of it. So 53 conversations later, and 175 hours of transcripts, which were thousands and thousands of pages, because honestly, Alyque and I both have ADHD. So what we cover in 1 hour is like what most people will cover in 5. And so we went through these thousands of pages of transcripts and highlighted, and then got this huge board and put down what the themes were. And it was just obvious. It was, he hijacked your mind. He got you to think differently. If you thought that was white, he would be able to convince you it was black. And so, yeah, it was around 175 hours, plus events, plus going to meet people like you at his birthday parties and stuff, which really gave me an insight into who he was and what was important for him. And that's how we brought it together.
Right, absolutely. And you've done a wonderful job, we have to
Thank
say.
you.
Really.
Thank you.
Right. Okay, so do you want to ask the audience the third question?
Yeah, so I'm very interested in asking the audience, and I'll make sure I get the question completely right. Do you feel it's important to have something that you're equally passionate about as your job in life? Is it important to have a passion as important as your job? Put your hands up if you say yes. That's so good to see, that 70%. So I never want to hear any of your kids or grandkids say, my parents always say to me, beta padhai karo, and that's it, right? So we're going to be encouraging them to do other things. And one of the reasons, well, Jim, I want to come to you on this. You studied psychology at Emory. How has that helped you with acting?
In many ways, it helps to kind of get into the mind of the character, or to basically understand the motivations for actions and words. Try to go backwards, because you have the line on the page and you have what your character does, but then you have to create the rich interior world that has created those actions and those lines. Otherwise, the people feel that it's a two-dimensional performance, or people feel that, you know, they don't believe the character for some reason, because you might be, because you haven't thought it through enough. However, I do also believe that psychology can be a straitjacket for actors, in that they get too much inside of their own heads and they start to think, no, this person wouldn't do that, and based on the psychological profile that I've created for them, they wouldn't say this, or they wouldn't be so large about this line, where I think you should throw all of that stuff out of the window. You surprise yourself constantly. Why shouldn't your character surprise you?
Brilliant, brilliant. Very, very good point. So do have a hobby, do have a passion, but don't necessarily let it take over your life. Shiamak, would you add anything?
Well, use it for the good things. And
use it for the good things.
You don't have to, it doesn't have to be a perfect match.
Yeah, very good point. Shiamak, what's the theatre taught you?
Discipline. Carla, look at me. She was the sweetest person I worked with. I learned a lot with Carla, actually. I started with Carla, with Tommy, which flopped, the musical. We did 5 shows, right? But for me, those 5 shows was like, I conquered, I think, probably something big and larger than life. And then, of course, I had Alyque, and there was so much of, he was loud, he was strong, he was not a hypocrite. He would tell you as it was. But the thing was, Alyque loved me. So the thing was, even if I was a brat, he still wouldn't fire me. And I mean, if he fired me, it would have been just like that. I was more scared of Carla. See, I have to bring you. You looked after me, man. My Sharon also. God, all of them.
I was going to say Sharon as well.
I'm working with Keith Stevenson in Evita and Cabaret, and working with my Farouk in Cabaret and all of them. You know, there was my Viraf also was there. So, you know, I learned to grow up. And because I loved what I did, I had to grow up and then be disciplined to get where I am today. But it was tough, and it was easy at the same time, because it was what I would do. Like, it would be a part of what I am. But I must say that, as you said, passion earlier, if you don't have any passion, I'm telling you, you're going to die soon. It is a very sad thing, and people today, I know people today, it's really sad, who do not have even a hobby or something. You need something than just being dead man walking, you know?
You know, Alyque says we're sleepwalking through life.
But we are.
That's it.
But we are.
But if you bring a passion in,
And what is
aliveness.
Passion again is a creative thing of the force of divinity. It's
Yes.
all there.
Yeah.
And that is how you have to do something. We are creative beings. We're energy. If we do not give in to creativity, we don't last. And that's why writing something, doing something.
But it's so important.
Shiamak, I think that the pandemic, I think, has, you know, allowed us to do so much more. I mean, I think it forced us to look at ourselves in a different way and explore different ideas and, you know, facets of our personality. How many of y'all actually did something extra or special during the pandemic? I mean, you know, that kind of built on your personality. I think it's very important, and you can see from all the wonderful chefs, the home chefs that have, you know, evolved. I mean, every day we get about 1 million new messages from, you know, home chefs who are doing such great work. I'm just saying, because they were actually just homemakers, but they decided to do something with their creativity and their passion. So I think,
everyone was baking and selling desserts and doing stuff like that.
So I think, yes, I mean, what you say
we
is
get
right.
so many orders.
They have expanded their horizons for sure. Right, do we want to talk about...
I just want to ask Dalip and Jim very quickly. So you mentioned earlier what you feel that the theatre has taught you. Anything else you want to add to that?
Yeah, this is a very interesting question, that you should have something more in your life than just your profession that you work for. But I've been very privileged that way, because actually what I was my passion and my hobby eventually became my profession, and I have to thank Theatre Group and Alyque and Pearl for that. So actually, you know, I don't think I've done a day's work in my life. I mean, I get up in the morning and I go to something that I want to do, and it helps you psychologically as well, because you know, you're playing different characters, you're expected to play different characters. Every day is a different day. I was asked some time ago that, you know, you've been in this business for almost half a century, and 50 years, and out of that about 47 of it professionally. So how do you still keep going? So I said, the thing is that every day for me is a different day. I mean, I might be doing movies and I might be doing the theatre, but every day that you come there as an actor, and there's a different scene, there's a different character, so I feel
you're never doing the same thing
hugely
again.
privileged that is there. Otherwise, he's quite right. I mean, you know, I was in advertising and I was doing acting. I was working with Alyque on the side, and then, you know, but yeah, I mean, I absolutely think that you need something. I mean, you could be anything to take yourself into perhaps an area of something that perhaps loosely said, you know, satisfies your soul.
Yeah. Yeah, great. Thank you. And Jim?
What has theatre
How-
taught me?
Yeah, what has theatre taught you?
Despite like ashrams and meditation and yoga and all of that stuff, I think theatre is actually the closest experience that I have ever had to a kind of divinity or spiritualism, because they're not your lines, it's not your blocking, they're not your clothes, but you're living it with an intense passion while floating above it. I'm not done. While floating above it, watching yourself do it, you can't stop. You have to forgive yourself if you have to make a mistake and move on. You're totally in tune with the other people on stage, as well as riding the fact that you know someone is watching.
Brilliant. I don't think I can add any more to this conversation now, so I'm going to hand back to Rael.
Okay. So are we going to share with them a little bit about the 10 Commandments?
Yes. Okay, so at the beginning, I mentioned Moses and the 10 Commandments. Alyque, you might know his nickname was God. Did you know his nickname was God? And you might not know that he used to have a secretary called Jennifer Pope. So you had to go through Pope to see God. But actually, Alyque was saying that whilst religion does play a fantastic part of everyone's lives, at the end of the day, we've got to be true to ourselves. So what are the commandments we're willing to live by? And at the end of the book, Alyque has come up with his own 10 commandments, which we're going to share with you on the screen.
Sahil and Jim Sarbh. You know, I'd love for y'all to open it. I mean, I normally never do this, ever. I hate people opening gifts in front of, but it's kind of special, and we've had it really specially done for y'all. And these are frames by Asima.
I think it's personalized. It's so pretty.
So these are photographs which have, you know, some special meaning for them because they've all been part of Alyque's productions. And this we've never seen of Shiamak, so please show it. It was so cute. And Sharon, you're in it as well. It's lovely. It's a lovely picture. Yeah. Thank you, thank you. And thank you for stimulating our minds just as Dad would have wanted it. Our thanks to Harshal at Crossword, Nandini, and Sequera, Pearl Barsiwala, Rubina Khan, Shivan Mishra, and of course our executive producer Craig DeQuadris and our entire team at ACE, Glenda and Yamini Vatsa, and the team at Penguin. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we need you to be a part of our act. We have Sid Megani back in the house with music that I grew up on, and this was played on our record player every evening. My parents' all-time favorites. In case you haven't heard it, yes, it's the Beatles. So do make sure you all sing along. Denzel, we want you singing loud and clear. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, those lovely commandments were spoken out loud by Denzel Smith. Thank you so much, Denzel, for all your help, really. And thank you to everyone, especially Vandana. You all need to stay back because we need to do some things. But Sid is going to be with us on the stage. Let's go, Sid. Show's all yours. Huh? No, you stay. Okay, whatever. But don't go anywhere.
Can we do a selfie with... Oh, look, he's an expert, right? Come.
Dalipji, we start with you.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Okay.
The first question is, did he hijack your mind? And
Completely hijacked me, my mind, everything. And I was very happy to be hijacked because, I began, as I said, Alyque and Pearl were my gurus. I started my career from there. And it gave me a profession. So he completely hijacked the way I thought. And wonderful. I'd like to be hijacked again. But there is no Alyque Padamsee now, so there you are. But yeah.
And would you like to share some memories with us?
Some?
Memories of...
Oh yeah, I mean, I have great memories. I mean, I came to Bombay with my parents as a 14-year-old, 14 and a half, on my school holidays from Sherwood, Nainital. And I'd just done Macbeth in school, so I mean, I felt, and I'd won the Best Actors Cup, so I felt, I was the greatest thing since whatever. And I was at home, and my mother said, 3 months holidays to make a nuisance of yourself, go and do something. So I inquired and found out, and I said, who does theatre here? And unanimous, there was this huge echo across Mumbai saying there are only people who do theatre as Alyque and Pearl Padamsee. So I picked up the directory. In those days, there was no mobile phones. The directory with a black phone, and on came and the phone rang. I still remember it was a 2151 number for Kolaba, and someone came on the phone and said, "Yeah, what do you want?" So I said, "I'm so and so," and then then I spoke to Pearl. He gave the phone to Pearl, and I spoke to the lovely Pearl Padamsee, and she said, "Darling, totally different. Darling, please come over. You're most welcome. Where are you from?" And I went over there, and I have to tell you the story because as soon as I walked in, there was Ryle sitting at the table having in a school uniform, having her lunch or something, and I was expecting Pearl to do an audition for Pearl because that's what actors do. We do auditions from Shakespeare. So I just done Macbeth, and so I was prepared with that, but no. Pearl told me, "Darling, I'm going shopping," and she had this huge bag with her. And we went down Belha Terrace, got into the taxi, and she took me straight to Crawford Market. So I said, going to Crawford Market, how does this fit in with being an actor and auditioning to be an actor? But it was there that I got my first lesson in acting. Because Pearl went into this shop, and she was buying properties for Marat Saad. So as usual, there's never money in the theatre. And she began her performance to this shopkeeper and took discounts and everything. Finally, the shopkeeper said, "Madam, आप प्लीज़ दुकान छोड़ के जाइए. बाकी भी लोग हैं यहाँ पर, वो सब मुझसे डिस्काउंट मारेंगे. मैं कंगाल हो जाऊँगा. मैं आपका शो स्पॉन्सर करूँगा, लेकिन आप यहाँ से चले जाइए." So I mean, that was my first lesson. She came out and she smiled at me and she said, "That's what it's about." So I'm always indebted to her, and it gave me a lot, and I still thank them from the bottom of my heart, and I'm so grateful and happy that Ryle has called me here to in some way contribute to a tribute really to Alyque, and thank you for that. Thank you for that privilege. Thank you.
Jim, your thoughts? Did he hijack your mind? If yes, how? And some interesting anecdotes.
Yes, certainly. I had moved back to Bombay from the States, and I'd only done. I had just done one small acting job before then. This play, I mean, in Bombay, and I actually had a job. And I think my uncle got in touch with you, Ryle, and you put me in touch with your dad, saying that they're doing Death of a Salesman. Would I like to be a part of it? And so I got cast in my first big production here was with Alyque. And, I didn't know how it was going to go. I was trying to work out the rehearsals with the job. I quit the job. I just ended up doing the play. And he was the first person to put me on a billboard. And it it changes how you view yourself and where you want to go as well. So big props to Mr. Padamsee, and I'll always be indebted for that first big opportunity.
Okay. Yes, absolutely. We're so happy that the book has come to fruition, that it's out there, people are buying it, people are loving it. They're actually, responding. We've got some really great reviews. We've had so much support, when you see Shashi, Ronnie, everybody, of course, Dalip and Shiamak and Jim and everyone who've really supported us in this whole endeavor. It's been tough, it really has, but I think Dad's voice needs to be heard. He's got some great ideas,
totally radical at first, but I think once you spend some time with it, you really figure out that it makes a lot of sense. So go out and buy the book.
Shiamak, your thoughts?
Alex saw me in Grease Lightning when I was doing a musical, and he called me and he said, I didn't know you could sing so well. And my dear Dalip Tahil, who did the real big role of Che Guevara in Evita, was leaving, sadly, and we were all so upset because I was a dancer with him, and he was the star. Suddenly, I had to go and fill his role. And it was difficult, but I was just telling him I managed and I did a decent job, but,
Did a very good job.
Thank you. So, but the thing was that the most beautiful part about Alyque was that he was like a father to me. He literally, I promise you, I've heard him scream, shout, go berserk. But with me, he was like a small sweetie pie, like a daddy. So he really, for some reason, and cabaret, the way he made me do cabaret, he allowed me to fly. He didn't say, okay, you don't do it this way, you don't do it that way. No, say it like that. No, I would do, and he would say, okay, now just tweak this. So he was just a really good director. He didn't put stuff in your head and do that. He was fantastic. So he was like a father to me, literally. And that's why today, he always told me, when he saw my show, Selkood, recently, he said, before he passed away, he said that, Shiamak, you really have imbibed everything from me, and you've brought it forward. So I was very grateful to hear that from him.
The question? Yeah. So, Alec completely hijacked my mind. He didn't just hijack my mind. I think he gave me permission to breathe again. There were so many things that were going on in my mind, things about being a woman, being in business, being divorced, being a single mother. I had all these, I think, thoughts in my head about how I couldn't do things. And he just came along and he was like, darling, of course you can. And he was, like Shiamak says, he was like a godfather to me. So how did he hijack my mind? He gave me the space to really critically question why we do what we do, and to actually realize we can make a change. We don't have to follow everything that's been done in the past. And that's what we're trying to do with the book.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.